Welcome, my name's Roberta Kowald, and this is another installment of I'm Not There, Racial Presence and Racial Absence, and this time we're focusing on African American females and the way they're portrayed in the media. One of the things that's kind of interesting is for many years we've had the concept of the magical Negro, and this is the character who is a person of color who magically somehow appears, but their entire existence is based on keeping the hero, the white hero or heroine, on track. They are mentors, they are supporters, they're the one that shows all the white folk how they're doing everything wrong. And for a long time, this was predominantly only portrayed by African American males. But what we've been seeing in the last few years is how this is actually becoming something that we see more often in female characters. So, for example, you have Ghost. You have Whoopi Goldberg's character who is extremely flamboyant and a very funny, smart, street smart character. But again, her only purpose for being in this narrative is to help Sam be saved and find his magical way across the void to death. And I will also point out in a truly bizarre way she serves literally as a vessel. So at one point, Sam is so sad he can't say goodbye to his beloved. She literally is a pot in which he inserts himself. And then what's also interesting is that then, of course, he has this last chance to kiss and make out with his wife, but we never actually see that because, of course, we can't have Demi Moore kissing Whoopi Goldberg on bad. But so seriously, this character is nothing but an empty vessel for him to become fulfilled. In Sex and the City, the movie, we have this rather interesting character of St. Louise, and her name is Louise, but Carrie Bradshaw in the movie, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, keeps calling this character St. Louise. She magically appears out of nowhere. She magically helps Sarah Jessica Parker get her life back on track, or Carrie Bradshaw get her life back on track. And then once her purpose of serving the white person is done, she magically wafts away and disappears. So that's the other thing you have to remember about the magical Negro is the magical Negro literally serves only one purpose, and that is to help the white person or white people figure out what they're doing wrong. And suddenly everyone is enlightened. And once that purpose is fulfilled, then they either die or disappear. And they go off to help other white folk get their stuff together. So interestingly enough, what we tend to see with African American women, similar to what we see with African American males, are very much standard stock characters, if you like, out of Hollywood land. And they tend to be exactly the same kinds of people, much as we see with male characters. So we see gold diggers. We see what's referred to as a modern Jezebel. The Jezebel is an interesting character that actually goes back to the slave era. Baby mamas, the African American woman who does nothing but just have babies with assorted men who she doesn't really know very well, and 4 kids. It's the old stereotype of she's got 4 kids, all by different dads. Uneducated sisters, the snap, oh, I ain't gonna go there kind of thing. Ratchet women is kind of a new one. That's think about the way shows like Bad Girls are portrayed, where it's this group of women of color, and mostly all they do is yell and scream, cuss, drink a lot, and get into fights, which is slightly different than the angry black woman, who is more I'm going to tell you what you need to do, honey. Mean Black Girls, which is sort of a relatively new one, which is basically the old mean girls of high school, except now they're black. The unhealthy black woman, who there's something wrong with them, they've got some sort of disease. Black Barbies, who are, they have the processed hair, they have incredible figures, they wear high heels, they're basically a black Barbie doll. And then we have the mammy characters, and I'll talk about them in a minute when it comes to the Academy Awards. So when we talk about the Jezebel is kind of an interestingly complex image of African American women. but it's very much based in sex. And it's not just that she is a sexual object, but that she is seen as a voracious sexual character. She is the character that brings down men. So she's dangerous. So the Jezebel actually goes back to biblical, well, the name comes from the Bible or the Christian Bible. And it's this idea of this man-eating woman who is so desperate for acceptance in sex. So she, on the one hand, she is offering sex to males, mostly white, but she also is dangerous. She will take you down. She will ruin your life. You will not be able to see her as anything other than a dangerous pleasure, almost like a drug. And I find this picture of GQ, this cover of GQ, very interesting. Of course, first of all, it's GQ magazine. Second of all, we've got Rihanna, who is a beautiful woman and very talented. But I'm also looking at, sort of who else is, I will bet you $100 that Ben Affleck and Quentin Tarantino, who also appear in this particular edition of GQ, are not naked. We've got Rihanna on the cover. She is naked except for a leather jacket, and she's posed in this very interestingly provocative way. She's staring straight at the camera. And I keep thinking, okay, it's GQ, look sharp, live smart. Why is this woman naked? There's absolutely no reason for an article about a woman who is a talented musician. Why is she naked? And more that, and again, she's wearing a leather jacket, so she's not vulnerable naked. She's dangerous naked. If you have sex with this woman, bad things will happen to you. So let's talk about Scandal and Being Mary Jane. These are both attempts of television, by Television Land, to portray strong female women of color. And there's a certain level on which I applaud this because they are actually lead characters. Mary Jane is a lead character, and Scandal Olivia is the lead character. And it's nice to see women, especially women of color, being portrayed as flawed and complex. But the part that I have trouble with is this constant repetition of the fact that these women have extramarital affairs, but more importantly, they have extramarital affairs with white men. So in Scandal, Olivia is having an affair with a white president of the United States. And in Being Mary Jane, it's this character who constantly has this turmoil in her romantic and sexual relationships. So it's interesting that even when we see powerful women, they're Jezebels, essentially. They are scandalous women who are going to bring down powerful men with their sexual needs. They're beautiful, but their flaw is their need for sex. Now, at the opposite end of the scale, you've got the Jezebel on the one hand, who is so voraciously sexual that she will tear you apart. The opposite of that is the Mammy. And I think these two pictures are very interesting. On the left, we have Hattie McDaniels, the only woman to ever win, African-American woman to ever win an Academy Award, and it was for Sigh, Gone with the Wind in 1939, a really problematic role, which you can almost forgive because it was 1939, but not really. I would also point out this whole Mammy role in Gone with the Wind is, it's the whole happy slave. Of course she's there because she just loves those children. On the other hand, I think it's very interesting when you position these two pictures together. On the right hand of the screen is Octavia Spencer, who won for Best Supporting Actress in 2011 for her role in The Help. It's essentially the same character. It's the self-sacrificing black woman who gives up everything, who has basically no life outside of taking care of the white child, who she is so thrilled when the white child gets successful because, and embedded in this is that slave era mantra of this woman takes care of white children because she just loves you so much. It's not about the fact that this is a woman who had no other way to make a living or support her family. It's about the fact that she does this because she just loves you so darn much. There's never any indication that these women have family outside of the white child that they take care of and sacrifice for. It's all about, so while it pretends to be about the black, this strong black female maternal character, it's really about white people again. It's taking this poignant and important narrative about black women who had to set aside their own needs and their own children's needs to take care of white people so that they could survive. It's now turned into, well, she did it because she really loves it. So the only African American female to have ever won an Academy Award for Best Actress, oh my goodness, it's Halle Berry in Monsters Ball. I always think about this when I first saw Monsters Ball. My initial thought was, wow, now I know what Halle Berry looks like when she has sex. It's very interesting. So you have this narrative where you have this woman who has sex with the white man who actually executed her husband. She then moves in with him saying, I really need to be taken care of. This is a woman who is incapable of taking care of herself. In the movie, she's actually a mulatto, so she's biracial, which is what we'd call biracial now. But it's also part of this Jezebel stereotype because she is she needs a man in her life, and she needs a man. Most importantly, she needs a man for sex. And she needs someone to take care of her because she's incapable of taking care of herself. Some argue, actually, those of us that follow these kinds of things, we've been talking about the fact that a lot of times, some of us would argue that the Jezebel has now replaced the mammy as the dominant stereotype for African American women. The happy slave, I'm just taking care of white children because I love them so darn much, has now become the dangerous Jezebel. This is the woman who will ruin you. So moving right along, let's talk about Glee. I will admit my bias right here. I really have issues with Glee. Mostly because when you look at characters like Tina and Mercedes, their only existence is as a prop for self-realization. So when you have, even with the introduction of Unique, there's an interesting storyline about Unique, who is actually a transgender woman of color, which on the one hand, that's nice to see in a television show. But again, the only reason this character's story arc exists is to show all the white people how transphobic and racist they've been. So these characters exist only so that the white people can gain more knowledge. So it's really a self-realization story about white characters, not a story about a character of color. And in fact, Complex Magazine ranks Glee number 40 on its 50 most racist TV shows of all time in 2013. So let's talk about Devious Maids, and I'll talk about more about Devious Maids specifically in the section on Hispanic and Latino culture. But Devious Maids is kind of interesting because this is this year's big, and television studios are patting themselves on the back about how multicultural they are. But I think it's interesting when you think about these characters, particularly the female characters, in what kind of women they're actually portraying. So in Devious Maids, you now have a prominent, well-to-do black family, which again is kind of nice to see. Black people being successful and professional instead of, bartenders and garbage men. But you've got Kenneth Miller, who has a stroke and doesn't speak and has magical powers to be able to understand what people are thinking. There's his wife, Dee Dee, who's a gold digger and an ex-stripper. The daughter, Lucinda, is overweight, loudmouth, finger snapping. And then you've got son, Reggie, who has sex with the Latina maid. So while on the one hand, the TV studios are applauding themselves and saying, aren't we multicultural? Aren't we awesome? Again, what are they doing here? So let's talk real quickly about impacts. And this is very true. An Essence survey in 2013 surveyed 1,200 women of all races and asked them which images they saw most on television. Women overwhelmingly saw more negative stereotypes than positive. The one that black women reported that they saw most often was the baby mama. And they all agreed that the one they saw the least was the community heroine. But more to the point, these stereotypes actually have impacted the way people think about people they see in real life. So black respondents said that the women they knew most in real life were real beauties, modern matriarchs, girls next door, and individualists. White women and non-Hispanic white women cited negative images as most representative of black women they encountered in real life. They would name baby mamas, angry black women, unhealthy black women, and uneducated sisters as the people they saw